Welcome to Wonderful Women with Susan Stewart. I hope everybody's listening and that you share it far and wide. And please press subscribe. I am so excited and happy to have the wonderful, beautiful, amazing Juliet Stapleton with me today. Juliet is a visibility strategist, now specializing in human design, which is so fascinating. I have, unbeknownst to Juliet, known her for a good couple of years now. I came across Juliet on a free masterclass somewhere, and just through actioning her advice, I actually upped my revenue by £3,000 in 7 days. I then went on and stalked her for about a year without her knowing. I was saving all her Facebook posts and actioning little bits and pieces. But then I absolutely went for it and started working with her, taking her advice. Oh my goodness, she coaches you within an inch of your life, let me tell you, but gets the best out of you. And I am now in her accelerator. But never mind that. Today, we are here talking about this season's theme, which is there, tell us about a time in your life that an event or something changed that completely changed the trajectory of your life. Juliette.
Thank you so much, Susan. And my God, you're really one of the best action takers I have ever coached. So, the credit is all yours. And this is such an interesting topic for me because my whole life is constantly changing trajectories. Literally so many individual stories. But of course, I was thinking about what can I share with you today that is the most potent, or the biggest one. And I just wanted to talk about following your calling and changing the trajectory of your life because you have the calling. Because I think that all of us have a calling inside or to do this, that, or the other. Very little of us take action or take a leap of faith when an opportunity comes, and we often sort of chicken out, and it's easy to do, and it's not your fault if you have ever done that. But I want to share my story of the times when I didn't chicken out and I went completely blindly into the adventure and kind of came out on a good side of it, and I never regret so many pivots.
How exciting. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story of a little girl who, at the age of 3 years old, had an obsessive idea that she has to marry a foreigner. For that, she has to go travel, find him, and then fetch him. Oh. The foreigner was a specific foreigner, actually. It was D'Artagnan. From the Three Musketeers and D'Artagnan. So I had a specific type. I grew up in Soviet Union. We had really good film with talented actors. And D'Artagnan, he was so charismatic. He had long hair, blue eyes. He was singing. It was kind of like a musical movie, and he was just so flamboyant. And I was sold onto that. And when in the story, his love Constance gets killed, I was, it was the best time for me. I was telling everyone that now the Constance is out of the picture. I can go to Paris and I can marry him. And that was a 3-year-old. Long story short, this weird calling that something has to happen, something out of that world. Even though as I was growing up, it wasn't obviously, I wasn't dreaming about marrying D'Artagnan anymore. But there was this other little, notions. I remember once in school, we were told, what do you want to be when you grow up? What are you going to be? And I just jokingly said, well, I don't need to worry about it. I'm going to marry a foreigner and leave this hole. That kind of attitude. But again, it's what you were saying, you're not thinking, but I said, marry a foreigner. And later on, I was in music and bands, and I was always saying, I'm going to marry a music producer. I was even sometimes anticipating, say, the phone rings. I remember that I was about 14 and the phone rings and I'm thinking, that's him. Completely irrational.
Beautiful.
And yet it was there. The knowing that it's going to happen was there. And then fast forward, I actually got married in Estonia to someone else, not to D'Artagnan or not to my current husband. And at some point, you know, I felt that something is wrong. This is not the guy. And I thought, you know what, let's just, you know, stop it before it went too far. And, you know, maybe I'll just leave this country once and for all. And somehow, even though we did not break up, something happened. The intention was set there, and I started doing everything. I started saving money. I started, you know, telling everybody that, you know, I'm kind of really, really looking for the way to leave. And once I'm getting this email that says, Juliette, I would like to invite you and your band to sing on the festival in Aarhus in Denmark, on a street festival we have. And we were saying, great. And so I took a chance and I said, okay, but, you know, after that, I'm going to London. I had this idea because I spoke English. I went to a special school where we learned English. I thought, I'm going to go to England. And I said, you know, I'm going to London. Is there any chance you can pay for the tickets to London after that? Just completely took, like, chanced my arm.
Yeah.
And they said, yes.
Hallelujah.
And it was 1999. The economy, like just the economic situation in Estonia, the currency we had, you know, it was so different than the UK that for me, saving money half a year, I came in with something like £1,000 that I've spent in the first two or 3 weeks. You know, it was so different. And for me to buy a ticket, we didn't have Ryanair. We didn't have all these cheap airlines. So for me to buy a ticket, it was something that was stopping me from traveling in the 90s. And then this email comes in. I still don't know. The most important part, how did they get my emails? It was still the 90s. It's not like now that, you know, it's so easy to find somebody's email. So the universe gave me this. It heard my calling. It heard that I was serious about it. And it just opened the doors. And while I was already settled, I was 23, I was settled quite well in Estonia. I was teaching English. I had several jobs. I had loads of cash because I was giving loads of clients. I was in the band. I had 2 bands. I was earning money that way. I had so many connections, and I didn't even blink to say no to everything, you know, say goodbye to all my friends and just left into the unknown. Wow. And this was one of those pivoting moments when the trajectory changed completely because of that one email. But was it though that one email? That was just something that came in, and the invitation or the opportunity came into my life. But how many years before that the idea was brewing inside, and the knowing was
You've been
there.
Manifesting that since you were 3 years old, really?
Exactly. And even though my life, obviously I said we ran out of money and we had, the circumstances were kind of not what I expected. I thought I'm going to come to London and become a big star, a music star, and like take over the world. But I got pregnant. And I was pregnant that I was sick. So I ended up for almost 6 months. I was 2.5 months before I got pregnant there, settling in. And then for 6 months, I was just stuck in the room, pregnant, sick from pregnancy. You know, I couldn't really work. I was just so hormonal. I cried. I watched opera a lot. I cried at everything, you know, and it was just feeling like I spent all this time. But also it was the 90s and Estonia wasn't part of EU at that stage. So for me, it was also a choice. What's going to happen now? So I'm going to have this baby. I can't really stay in the UK because, you know, there's no provisions. If you have a baby in the UK, it doesn't become the citizen of the UK immediately, you know. So, and a friend came over and he just mentioned that some of his friends went to Ireland to have a baby, that Ireland has that kind of law, that the baby becomes a citizen if it's born on the Irish land. And the parents can get a residency automatically based on that. Now, let me say that after I've lived in Ireland for 20 years, that Ireland has a lot of backwards laws that somebody forgot to cancel. One of those laws that just canceled in 2007 or something like that. It was from 1600s. And it said, if a foreigner lives in your house, you will be beheaded.
Oh my goodness.
That was still in the legal system that nobody bothered to overrule. So Ireland had all these laws. And yes, I took my opportunity and I went to Ireland. I was another pivoting moment, right? I took a bus from London. I was 8.5 months pregnant. I came there with a suitcase and knew nobody, checked into the hotel or something like motel and started from scratch again. And it turned to be, a leap of faith that paid off. I met some people through people. I met people. I found a room to stay. Then I found a place to stay. I had a baby. Things started, my husband joined me. Things started unfolding quite well. We were able to stay there because we got the residency. And then, the husband kind of left the picture, or I left him. Yeah. And I started going back to my calling. So my mom came to help me with the baby, and I'm very grateful because she gave me a little bit of that opportunity to start, going out into the world and being visible. Yeah. So I started getting really visible, especially in the music scene. And the easiest music scene to get in as a singer is a jazz scene, because, you can sing the standards. Everybody knows the standards. You don't need to have a band, write songs, practice. You can just jam. Yeah. And it's so funny looking back. Right now, I'm a visibility strategist. I do online marketing. But what I did then is I bought a little camera and I would come to the gigs, take photographs of the band, and then ask them for an email address so I can send these pictures. Isn't this an opt-in for them to opt in into my funnel?
Absolutely. You genius.
It's so funny.
I didn't know that you were a singer, but I can see you there. I can
performing. Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
And the funny thing, I was always more into building visibility and promotion and especially online marketing than the actual singing. I'm really like average, I'm not in any way like super talented in that department, but I do know how to build your presence and I know how to make yourself visible. Now I'm looking back and I'm saying, oh my God, this is what I did. This is crazy. This is so strategic, but it wasn't for me. It was just something natural that, the idea, inspiration came to my mind, said, this is how I can connect to them. And, long story short, you ask for an email, you start talking. What do you do? I'm a jazz singer. I wasn't a jazz singer, but how do they know? That's positioning for you people, because you can say that, to strangers, they don't have stories about you. You can position yourself whichever way you want. You have to obviously, make sure that you back it up with some sort of like guts at least, but you can. So within 3 months, I got introduced to one of the prominent jazz singers in Dublin. And he kept inviting me on his gigs to come up and do a song. And within 3 months, I did my own gigs, paid gigs in those same venues. And it was quite amazing. And through that, I decided to learn a little bit more about music and especially music production. And I took this course and I met my husband, who I also was working in a restaurant at the time. And he was the customer in my restaurant for about a year. I didn't know that I was serving my other half, literally for a year before we even were introduced to each other. He was very grumpy. Didn't like him at all.
That quite often happens, though, doesn't it? That
it's so amazing in life. And then on this course, he came in just on the very first lecture, and he came in and he saw me straight away. And he always ordered this same thing. And so he was kind of saying, oh yeah, pizza frutti di mare. And what is it with your place and this place? Like, so many waiters becoming my students. And I looked at him and the way he was, I was like, this is my person. I'm here for the 3rd year or 4th year in immigration. And this is the only person that's like really my person. Yeah. And that kept continuing after the course was over. We went out and the rest is history. We moved in within 2 weeks, I think, together. And that's how I ended up marrying a foreign producer who then, became a real true daddy to my daughter, who he mentored to, all her abilities, and she's doing quite well academically, and I really attribute it all to him, because she's a theoretical physicist, and for me, I really, numbers, only double angelic numbers work in my life. The rest, the generation skipped, and Chantal has all the numbers and maths and physics in her mind. So that way, again, I feel like I won a lottery. I just like took a leap of faith. I didn't want to go out with my husband because he was my teacher, and I have standards. I don't, sleep with teachers.
Yeah.
And yet I also took a leap of faith with this one, just this one after the course was over. Yeah. And we've been together, and we were trying to build our life in Ireland. But Ireland is, for every one of us, there's a place that is aligned with us.
Yeah.
And it happened so that even though I'm very grateful that Ireland gave me so many wonderful opportunities, like a glue in my life story, putting things together, introducing me to key people or key events, and yet as a place, it was very misaligned place to me. As an environment, I did not really get really aligned with the culture, with the people. I failed to have a single, like a deep friend. Maybe I just didn't meet the right people, but that's okay. That's my journey. So for me, it was a place where I felt constantly unsettled, even when we bought the house, even when we thought that we're really, we're really settling there and we're seeding, putting the seeds in for our future. I couldn't see myself getting old there. Yeah. Like I just couldn't visualize myself older and in that place, even in that house. And my husband is, even though he's from Dublin and he's Irish, he kind of had the same thing. He really doesn't like Ireland, and he is not really into the culture and always was the black sheep, and we always wanted to move somewhere. So the next stage of our calling was to go somewhere together. And for about a decade, we had this intention, and everything we did, every time we went on holidays, specifically, we wanted to go to Spain because the food, the culture, the weather as well is nice, but it was more about the standards, especially with the food. We love eating. We love good food. And,
honestly, it's amazing.
Yes, and it's just like people as well, the talking and like communication, they're very touchy-feely, they're very, sometimes when you get to know them, they're very inclusive. So we really wanted to go and live somewhere, maybe Mallorca or somewhere like that, very diverse, very, places with a lot of gems around. And for our brains, we need a lot of variety. So it's an island with, like Mallorca, for example, every corner, if you ever rented a car driving around Mallorca, it's mind-blowing because every corner offers something amazing, and some places look so different from each other, and it's just really such an amazing place. We traveled on a motorbike and in the car so many times, but somehow Spain wasn't kind of inviting us in. We had the calling to move, we wanted to go there, but there was no invitation. There was no opportunities to go to Spain. There was no, nothing was happening. And then things started, there was a period in our lives when things started not working out. My mom-in-law was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we had to care for her, and then she passed away. Then my husband's young sister as well had motor neuron, and we sort of looked after her, and then she passed away. And my husband, I think that at that stage as well, music industry wasn't really happening. He's, a producer, but music industry collapsed in 2010. And for the whole 10 years that after that, there was nothing really happening at his level. So he was feeling so, I think, unfulfilled, and looking at his family, closest people passing. It was really hard on him. And he developed cancer that we didn't know of up until in 2017. And 2017 was a very weird year because just before that, I turned 40 in 2016. My 40th birthday was the weirdest day because I knew that it's a new era in my life. I was happy. The happiest probably of all my birthdays in my whole life was my 40th birthday because I knew I'm entering something that will be amazing and will change everything. And I knew it's going to be visibility. Something told me I need to do video. I remember talking to a friend of mine, and I said, I know I want to talk on video. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I see this vision that, me there on screen talking on video, like they do on Facebook. And so it was kind of like, an embryo.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Developing. And so in about March that year, I was part of the little personal development group, about 1,000 people, and they did little challenges, so one of the challenges all of a sudden was the Life Video Challenge. And I joined, and I said, okay, let's do this, let's try it. First day was terrifying. The second day we were talking about, our lessons, and I started talking about the sister-in-law that just passed. And my biggest lesson from that was that she was not very good at making decisions in life. And eventually it felt like life just came in and said, well, now you can't make any decisions. Your condition doesn't allow you. And it take away everything from her. And so I shared how I felt, because for me, it was a kick in the backside, not to ever, bypass making my own decisions.
Absolutely.
As I was talking about this, I realized that I love sharing. I love sharing what I think. I love sharing things.
You're so good at it.
Yes, and it seems to impact. It seems to, through me sharing my personal perspectives, it seems to affect other people in a positive way, that other people, there's aha moments. So long story short, after 7 days, I was saying, I cannot stop that. And the next challenge in that group was to challenge yourself to do something for 30 days straight. And I was saying, yes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue with this. I know, I'm a big law of attraction sort of fan. I was especially at that stage. And so I said, I'm going to share that wisdom. I'm going to share little tricks and hacks and things that I do. And that's what I'm going to be doing every day, just a little small hack. But on day 4, my husband was already getting really sick at that stage. We thought it was a bad flu. And on day 4, we had to take him to the doctor. It was just becoming really horrible. And the doctor tested him a little bit. He had swollen lymphs. So when she felt those lymphs, she looked at me and she said, I think you should pack a bag for the hospital. And I think it should be a big bag. And I had to drive him to the hospital. And that was the last time I saw him for about 3 weeks, because they immediately suspected that it was lymphoma cancer. In 24 hours, they diagnosed him, and they had to transfer him to another hospital that was 2 hours drive away in a completely opposite direction to where I was going with my daughter's school, run all day, every day. And so they took him there. I have to mention that I call my husband, but we were on a very long engagement that started on our first date and lasted 13 years up until that year when we decided, let's just go and get married. And we had our date set on the 5th of the 5th. It's actually coming up this week as we're recording this, our 5th anniversary of our wedding day. And so 3 weeks before the wedding day, all that happened. And that was really like, the ground just like, or whatever the carpet was taking out of my feet, and I didn't know what's going to happen. So my brain worked in that kind of way that I always said all my life that you have 3 days to face any trouble. First day, you're allowed to cry and feel sorry and, just cry your eyes out. Just let it out. The second day, it'll be numb, but that's okay. But the third day, you have to start moving on. You have to make a decision and do something about it. And I've always approached little things, but this was the biggest challenge, obviously, for me, and let alone for my husband. But here's the thing. What can I do? It's not my battle. Cancer is not something I could in any way affect. And I was given by someone, it wasn't my idea that was born inside me, but somebody, I mentioned the diagnosis and they got on Skype with me and they gave me beautiful advice. They said, the energy you're going to give this disease is going to make or break whatever is ahead. So make sure you don't give it any energy. Even if you go to the hospital and say it's very difficult, you're in the ward and you're starting feeling overwhelmed, you go down to the cafeteria, you get yourself the nicest coffee, like a cappuccino or something, sit down there, enjoy yourself, and just block everything and just get back into this good frequency.
Amazing advice.
That was an amazing advice. Yeah. That really was, because that's changed everything. I really said, I am not going to give this cancer any energy. Yes, I did cry my first day, cried my eyes out, didn't go live in my challenge, but I played a song. You know, Desiree, You Gotta Be Strong.
Oh, yeah, I love that song.
That song, I'm getting goosebumps. That song, all my life, I knew something special about that song from the very first moment I heard it. And this was the song that pulled me through that day. I think I listened to it 100 times in that day. And it wasn't about being strong. It was about love will save the day. It was all about that. That was the phrase. And so next day, I resumed. I went live. I told my group what was happening. You know, I sort of tried to explain the way I'm dealing with it. You know, if something happens, you need to. I don't know if have you ever seen the comedy Take Him to the Greek? It's Russell Brand and Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
So there is this crazy moment when they all get really stoned on drugs, and they had this big joint called Jeffrey. And so they say, when life slips you a Jeffrey, stroke the furry wall, something like that. They have this song. And I loved that, because this is exactly like if something happens and you're losing control, and you really have no control, you need to calm yourself down, do something comfortable, do something that you can do. So sharing was one of the ways. And so I kept going. And while my husband, he was so lucky, because people were so, people who dealt with him, his doctor, the nurses, they really, really were so into him in a way. And they found out that our wedding is coming up. And it was literally, there was another movie, Only You, right? With Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And how at the end, they stopped the plane for love in Italy. You know that moment? Oh, well, I had that moment in the real life, because they actually made him walk to our wedding. We didn't have a big wedding. We didn't have guests. We literally went and just registered. That's all it was. Our witnesses were some people who worked in the building. It was just me, my husband, my daughter, and these couple of strangers, but we just wanted to make this happen, because from the very first date, we said we're going to do this. This was something that, we were each other's halves. And so, of course, they made him walk. So we got married. It was really, really lovely. And then a very, very difficult chemo for the whole summer that he was going through. Again, we didn't know, because they literally told us, if this doesn't work, then there's nothing else we can do for you. The only good thing about this situation is that lymphoma is one of the cancers that is treatable. So there is a 50-50 chance, and then the longer it is from when you had cancer, the better survival rates are. Yeah. So we are now 5 years past, and we're in good form. Touch wood. Everything is great. But what happened to me as well with this not giving it any energy? So I focused on myself. I focused on, what do I want to do? I wanted to do this video. I wanted at that stage not to think about him recovering, but thinking about, what do we actually want? Like, what's the cause of this? Is the feeling stuck, really? Feeling stuck. So how can we get unstuck? And the only way we could get unstuck was to change the country, because that was really making us, feeling down and isolated and misaligned. Change the country. But in order to change the country, you have to have a type of business that, and thankfully I was already running my own business, but a type of business that you can pack in your bag and move and not lose your customers, because I was working with local businesses, and for me to just pack and go, and that would mean most of them wouldn't stay with me. And so my intention was to have that freedom, to create that freedom. I didn't mind that it was hard work. I didn't mind how long it will take. I became insanely visible on Facebook. But then at the end of the 30 days, I also noticed how many people from that personal development group were actually really following me. And my strategic brain again said, boom, Juliet, you can monetize this. Oh. This is your way out. Yeah. And so I started doing online coaching from that. I started teaching what I know. My first little 3 weeks course was actually a confidence course, boost your confidence course, where I gave them little exercises, and it was brilliant. It actually really had great feedback. And then the journey started. It wasn't all wonderful. I can't say to you that in 90 days I made 100K, all these stories. It took so much longer, and it's hard work, and it's still continuing to be hard work, because if you're not showing up, nothing's going to happen. So it's all about showing up.
Absolutely.
But what happened is that, by just taking action towards these dreams, we were then suddenly, in 2 years' time after that, my business was flexible. I already knew that I can absolutely leave, because I didn't work with a single person locally who wouldn't stay with me. If I left, I stopped going to I started preparing them. I stopped going to their premises, and I worked remotely. So then I could just say, hey, listen, I haven't seen you in 6 months. So does it really matter that I'm down the road or I'm in Estonia?
Amazing.
So
you
Estonia.
Are a true strategist. And
I know, it's like natural. It's a natural thing.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are. We just don't listen sometimes to ourselves, and looking back, it's clear. When you look back, it's clear that that's what you did. But it's not always obvious in the journey. The journey is usually like a lot of fog and confusion. But as long as you're taking these steps, then looking back, you can see, oh, yeah, that's clearly that's what was happening. Yeah. So whatever you're pursuing in life, and if it feels unclear now, just trust the journey. This is where trusting the journey comes. So so what happened then is after my husband started recovering, we decided that we're going to move. And just before that, on my birthday that I mentioned, we were actually in Tallinn, Estonia with my family, and we loved it here. It had everything we like in Spain, but it was kind of like a little bit classier, because there was no holiday makers, tourists that really annoyed us. It's a really cultured place. It's really beautiful. There's a medieval old town, and the vibe was really, really good. And so my husband said, I want to move to Estonia now. That should be our base. We can go to Spain anytime, but I want to live in Estonia. And for me, going back after all this journey of leaving it behind and, burning all the bridges, not burning, but cutting the bonds and breaking the bonds and going away and thinking I will never go back. It was a big, big pivot. That was the trajectory for me, probably in the most unexpected way, have changed. And it probably took me a year to really want it myself. I had to come to terms with, what will my old friends think, but how will I reconnect to them? How can I make sense of living in a place where I grew up, but I'm absolutely not part of that life? And how can I create a new life without that old life interfering in some way, or holding me back, or judging me, or, all these things. And it was, there was so much in my head that really I felt really held back, until we came here in 2018. And, just one night I was just sitting in a coffee shop or something like that in the old town. And I looked around and I felt I belong here. I belong here. People, who cares about people? People and their stories. We can never change what other people think, what other people say. Let them be. I belong here. This is what I was missing in Ireland. This ground has the energy. That's my energy. I feel happy here. And I've always been, when I lived in Estonia when I was younger, very successful. I actually was a money magnet. As mentioned, I had a lot of money. I had loads of opportunities while I was living here. I just needed, my other half wasn't here. So long story short, that trajectory, the moment I said, oh, this is where I want to be, magically, things that were really holding us back, for example, we had property in Ireland, and it was recession, and it was very difficult to sell, especially where we were. And so to get rid of that house, it was something, how are we going to do this? And things started happening. We were able to get rid of our house. Then pandemic started. I was laughing. I said, oh my God,
I know.
Every time the dream comes true, then the earthquake happens, because, the plateaus of life have to change. And this time, what could it be? A pandemic. And the moment where we thought we were going to be leaving in maybe April or May, and then in March, everything stopped and closed, and, and we're sitting there and we don't know what's going to happen. And that was the time for me where I really, really leaned into trust your journey. Every day I said, everything will happen in its own time. and it's going to be the best timing for us. When it's going to happen, don't push. Everything's going to happen. And unbelievably, now looking back, considering how many lockdowns we had, and that it didn't last for just a couple of months. This pandemic lasted for 2 years. In the middle of July 2020, the numbers everywhere went down, and we were able to get that ticket. Which we bought we hired a big skip, and we actually got rid of 99% of stuff that we had. Wow. And we packed 5 suitcases from all these 20 years living in this place, right? 5 suitcases, 3 of us drove into the sunrise and very early in the morning, left the property behind, and came to Estonia and had a wonderful, literally into the first apartment that my sister went to check for us, it was available. The landlord was like, yes, please, come here. It's in the heart of the city. I love it. That was the trajectory. So that's my story of trajectories. And I'm here now for almost 2 years. And I feel so settled, so happy. The environment is my environment. And no matter what little things we have during the, everyday kind of things, when I step back and I really think what happened and how this whole story, this cycle, not completed, because there's still, there's still a lot ahead.
Yeah.
But it has been so magical. So I'm really honored that I was able to share it with you today.
Oh, I love that. And I've actually got little tears in my eyes, and it is so beautiful. And, I am an absolute believer in put your faith in life, and it takes you to wherever you need to be. And don't panic. I've never panicked. I've always just gone, this might just be an upside down thing, but no, it's not. Put your faith in life. And if you do, it just brings you to the most beautiful conclusion or next step. And it makes life exciting, doesn't it? Who the hell needs logic all the time? We need a little bit of it, but we need that magic. And you are so happy. Look at you. You're happy. You're fulfilled. You're and your work is just, isn't it great, Juliette, that we can just, wherever our laptop is, that we can work from there. And it's
absolutely magical. It really is. And you know what? The bottom line is, I'm just a regular person. I'm not a super achiever. I don't never position myself like this. I actually think I'm a lazy person, and I would have done so much more if I was a little bit more disciplined and all these kind of things. But when you have trust, when you have the intention, you set yourself the intention and you allow the time to unfold. You just trust that, you take inspired action. When you feel this is how I do it. And yes, of course, you mentioned, that I specialize in human design, and I am so obsessed with human design for the last 2 years. I discovered it just before we moved from Ireland. So in that pandemic where nothing was happening, I was doing a lot of research and reading and thinking, oh my God, I found permission to be me. Now I don't have to worry about why I'm this way or that way or what's going on. And I am a splenic projector, which is spleen is in the moment.
Yeah.
So for me, what's right now is correct. If I feel it's a yes right now, it's correct. Now, if you asked me tomorrow, that invitation could expire and it might not be correct for me.
Yeah.
And so I have to be so good with, for example, if we decided we're going to be recording this podcast on a Thursday, and then Thursday came in and I am not feeling up for it, I have to say, hey, I can't do it because it's a no today, but it might be a yes tomorrow or another day. And so just finding these ways to be okay with living within your own pace, and that really helped me with, I already had a lot of trust, always had trust, but it really helped me with trusting that there's nothing wrong with me, that I'm not, as I said, I'm not lazy. I just have a very different trajectory of working, right? I work in bursts and then I rest for 3 weeks and then I have a burst. And it's just learning your way around it and understanding how you make decisions, understanding this. And that was really, really a big thing. And when I moved here as well, I thought, how we, grew up on fairy tales, and happily ever after happened, a big wedding or whatever it is at the end of the fairy tale, and they lived happily ever after. And so for me, it was like we came in here in July 2020, and then the happily ever after. And I thought, okay, 1 week I'm going to party. Here's a budget for the partying, right? Then after 1 week, I'm going to go back into my work and visibility, and I'm going to take so many pictures. Look at this backdrop, is so beautiful here. And it happened so that I had almost 1.5 years of really settling down. I never thought that there is a post-trauma, post-dream come true trauma that happens because you actually don't have a dream. You have no drive.
Yeah, because you're there.
You kind of, you've achieved it, but what's next? And this is something that's very interesting, because I will honestly be so transparent. I still don't have a very big what's next. That drove me to such, powerful extent, like meeting my other half, or, leaving the place, or so I don't, and I can't focus on things like, oh, buy your own, place. I can't focus on materialistic things. I want them, but they don't excite me enough to become this driving force. So the 2 years have been this journey, and I'm now kind of in the anticipation of what is going to be the next thing. And I'm just trying to, lean into how I am and my design. And I started using human design with my clients, which really, really helps, with mentorship, because because everybody has their own way, and you can't just do this cookie cutter solutions and make people feel like there's something wrong with them where there isn't anything wrong with them.
Absolutely.
And this is kind of opening up a very, very interesting door right now, which is unclear, but I'm sure one day I'll look back and I will say, wow, it was so clear that it was bringing me there.
And this is why that happened. And, that is so fascinating that, and probably we don't think about that, when we've achieved our dream, it can be you will reach a plateau of, right, and my goodness, Juliet, there will be a what's next.
Oh, of course, yes.
There'll be a what's next. But I love the fact, and I think I love being self-employed. I've been self-employed for many years now. And before that, I think I'd reached a point in the corporate world where I used to say, well, I'll work 3.5 days. That might be a 5-day contract. That's fine. You'll fly me here, you'll fly me there, and that. And so I've written my own diary for a long time. And however, I worked far too many hours, really. Because I would come home and carry on working. Now, my non-negotiable of the day is 3 hours at least every morning for me that are, and I go for a really long walk, I meditate, I sit and have coffee, I play with the dog, I read, and I will not start work before 11 a.m. for anyone at all. And that takes quite a bit of getting used to, because we've been conditioned as a society with this 9 to 5 or 12, what's these 12-hour shifts? They're killing people. So, having the freedom without guilt is so, so important. And I really hope people start demanding their life right. It's not even a birthright, it's a life right of, no, my life is important, that, and that old adage, you don't live to work, you work to live, is so damn important and needs to be realized. And with human design, and I love it too, and I've read and I've studied it, you bring it to life for me as well. It's not just in a book, and I love it, and I love the way you interpret it, and it's beautiful. We can be chatting and you'll be telling me, oh, that's because of my channel or my my emotion or and all that sort of thing. But I've loved this. I have loved this story of your life and the trajectories and the You are definitely a manifester from, and I think everyone is in a way, but they don't realize it, but you've managed to look back and realize it. And I've got to say, you know, you would have been over in Estonia, but I would have been a lot younger. I had a thing about the Three Musketeers as well. I loved them. But that was, I'm quite a few years on from you, but I did love them. I just thought they were so bloody sexy. They were gorgeous. And
I don't know. They always cast real sexy men.
Oh, don't they?
In the Musketeers, and our D'Artagnan was to die for.
Yeah.
He was really like, this is, you know, I actually, I was about 3 when I started this obsession. And then I was about 5 when I saw the same actor playing in a fairy tale, and he was playing like a negative character, like a wolf who wanted to eat some, like a lamb or something like that.
Yeah.
And I cried my eyes out. It was such a big disappointment.
Yeah.
How can he, the love of my life, be so bad? This is, but you know, it's funny how I think we all have these things, but it's the parents sometimes, and God bless them, it's not that, you know, their fault. They might not know any better, or they want something better for you. They don't see maybe your, you know, world sometimes. And it's the parents, it's the school, it's the society. Everything tells you, you know, put your dreams back where they came from. And, you know, put the cap on this, lid on this bottle. Like, don't be a show off. Don't, you know, bend backwards, you know, otherwise you're going to lose this, you're going to lose that. We're conditioned to live in this constant fear of losing everything. And then when we lose everything, it's like, oh yeah, they all told us that we're going to lose everything. And so in a way, funny thing that while you were talking, I thought to myself, oh my God, maybe there is also, it's not always that you have to have a drive to live from somewhere, or, you know, to get somewhere else. Maybe sometimes what you need to do is just enjoy your every day.
Exactly.
And I think what you said about having that time for yourself, whether you're, of course, it's easier when you're running your own business, but guys, if you're not running your own businesses, it's hard work. It's much easier to be in employment in many ways, right? So it's a really hard work. We're just talking about this one benefit, that you can call the shots, and you can say, you know what, I am not bending backwards for nobody, because at the end of the day, it actually never was worth it. It was never worth it. Nobody ever made me feel more valuable, or, you know, I don't feel worthy just because I bent backwards for this client or this employer or anything. Nothing. They still treated me in the way they treated me. And so why don't we just flip the script and say, I'm going to be selfish here. I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to do what I love doing. While I'm doing this, I'm going to be in this great vibe. People will feel my vibe. I will feel like my light will fill their lives with light. And it's a completely different thing. So instead of, you know, trying to put yourself on the back seat somewhere, on a back burner, and feeling so disempowered and feeling bitter or frustrated all the time, and then causing the diseases to come into your life and take away your rights to make decisions, to enjoy your life. You know, it's like receiving, being in the moment, and just enjoying yourself, enjoying these experiences like this podcast we're recording. Just such a wonderful connection. Whatever we're here 45 minutes to 50 minutes talking about, it's a wonderful connection that brings so much value and warmth into my soul. And look, I'm looking at Susan radiating, you know, warmth there on the other side. And we're 3,000 miles apart.
Isn't it amazing?
And hopefully everybody that's listening is feeling this too. So how amazing is that? And that's sometimes a little dream as well in itself.
Absolutely. It's all about the energy, and it's all about love. Always.
Love will save the day.
Love will save the day. And on that note, I have got to thank you so very much, Juliet. This has been marvelous. I am loving this already. And I'm sure you'll come back next season.
I would love to.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.